Life in Salem village in the late 1600s was hard and simple. Families lived in small wooden houses. They worked from sunrise to sunset. Their days were filled with farming, tending to animals, and prayer. The forest around them was dark and vast, a place of unknown dangers. Winters were long and cold, bringing sickness and hunger. The world felt small and isolated. People depended completely on their neighbors and their faith to survive the difficult seasons. They believed deeply in God and the devil, seeing their influence in every part of daily life, from a good harvest to a sudden illness. The community was also full of tension and disagreements. Neighbors argued over land boundaries and property. The village had recently separated from the larger Salem town, which caused political disputes. A new minister, Reverend Samuel Parris, had arrived, but not everyone liked him or his strict sermons. These small conflicts created an atmosphere of distrust. People whispered about their neighbors and held grudges. This constant friction meant the community was not united. It was a place where suspicion could easily take root and grow, like a weed in a poorly tended garden. For the young women of Salem, life was especially restrictive. They were expected to be quiet, obedient, and busy with household chores like cooking, cleaning, and weaving. There was little room for fun or imagination. Their futures were already decided for them. They would marry, have children, and manage their own households. Education was limited, and their voices were rarely heard in public matters. This lack of freedom and expression created a sense of boredom and frustration. They were looking for any kind of distraction from their monotonous lives. It was in this tense and rigid environment that a few girls gathered in Reverend Parris's kitchen. His daughter Betty and his niece, Abigail Williams, along with other local girls, spent time with Tituba, an enslaved woman in the Parris household. Tituba told them stories from her home in the Caribbean, stories filled with magic and spirits. The girls began trying to tell fortunes, a forbidden activity. This small act of rebellion, born from boredom and curiosity, would soon ignite a fire of fear and accusation that would consume the entire village and leave a permanent scar on American history. In the cold winter of 1692, something strange began to happen to the young girls. Betty Parris and Abigail Williams started having bizarre fits. They would scream, throw things, and contort their bodies into unnatural positions. They complained of being pinched and pricked by invisible forces. The local doctor could find no physical cause for their suffering. He suggested that their illness might be the result of witchcraft. This diagnosis was terrifying, but it was also an explanation that people in the 17th century could understand. The idea that the devil was at work in their village spread quickly. Fear is contagious, and it soon infected other girls in the community. Ann Putnam Jr., Mercy Lewis, and others began to show the same strange symptoms. The afflicted girls became the center of attention. Their dramatic fits and cries captivated the villagers. When asked who was tormenting them, they began to name names. The first people they accused were women on the margins of society. They named Tituba, the enslaved woman who had told their fortunes. They also accused Sarah Good, a homeless beggar, and Sarah Osborne, an elderly woman who rarely attended church. These accusations were easily believed because the accused women were already outsiders. Tituba was from a different culture. Sarah Good was poor and unpopular. Sarah Osborne was involved in legal disputes over her family's inheritance. People saw them as different and therefore suspicious. Rumors about them spread like wildfire through the small community. Villagers recalled past arguments or strange encounters, reinterpreting them as evidence of witchcraft. The gossip turned suspicion into certainty in the minds of many. The seeds of hysteria, planted in fear, were beginning to sprout. The belief in witches was a normal part of life in the 17th century. People genuinely believed that the devil could give certain people called witches the power to harm others. They thought witches could send their spirits out to torment victims, cause illness, kill livestock, and spoil crops. This belief was supported by the Bible and preached from the church pulpit. When the girls made their accusations, they were not just telling stories, they were confirming the deepest fears of their Puritan neighbors. The community was primed to believe in a satanic conspiracy against them. The accusations led to official action in March 1692. Local magistrates John Hathorne and Jonathan Corwin were called to investigate. They held public examinations in the Salem village meeting house. The afflicted girls were present at these hearings. Whenever an accused person entered the room, the girls would fall into dramatic fits of screaming and pain. They claimed the spectre, or spirit, of the accused witch was tormenting them in that very moment. This spectral evidence was considered a valid form of proof, even though no one else could see the spirits. The examinations were not fair trials. The magistrates already believed the accused were guilty. Their questions were designed to force a confession. They would ask things like, "Why do you hurt these children? And who is your master?" The accused had no lawyers to defend them. If they denied the charges, the girls' fits would become more intense, which seemed to prove their guilt. If they confessed, they were spared execution, but were expected to name other witches. This created a terrible choice: lie and live, or tell the truth and die for a crime you did not commit. The first three accused women, Tituba, Sarah Good, and Sarah Osborne, were easy targets. Under intense pressure, Tituba confessed. She told a wild story about signing the devil's book and flying on a stick. She also implicated Good and Osborne, and claimed there were other witches in Salem working with them. Her confession was exactly what the magistrates wanted to hear. It confirmed their fears that a large conspiracy of witches was threatening their community. The hunt for more witches began in earnest, and the circle of accusations started to widen rapidly. Soon, the accusations went beyond social outcasts. Respected church members like Rebecca Nurse and Martha Corey were accused. Martha Corey had publicly doubted the girls' stories, which made her a target. Rebecca Nurse was a kind, elderly woman known for her piety. Her accusation shocked many in the village. Even a 4-year-old child, Dorcas Good, daughter of Sarah Good, was accused and put in chains. The message was clear: anyone could be a witch. No one was safe from suspicion, and doubting the trials was dangerous. Throughout the spring and summer of 1692, the trials continued with terrifying speed. A special court was established in Salem town to handle the witchcraft cases. The first person to be hanged was Bridget Bishop on June 10th. Over the next few months, 18 more people followed her to the gallows, including the respected Rebecca Nurse and Minister George Burroughs. One elderly man, Giles Corey, refused to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. As punishment, he was pressed to death with heavy stones. In total, 19 people were hanged, one was pressed to death, and several more died in prison. The trials finally began to lose support in the autumn. The accusations had become too extreme. The afflicted girls started accusing very important people, including the wife of Governor William Phipps. Doubts grew as people realized that respected and devout individuals were being convicted on flimsy evidence. Prominent ministers like Increase Mather began to speak out against the use of spectral evidence. He argued that it was better to let 10 suspected witches escape than to execute one innocent person. This shift in thinking from powerful leaders was a crucial turning point. In October 1692, Governor Phipps ordered a stop to the proceedings of the special court. He created a new superior court that disallowed spectral evidence. Without this key type of proof, it was much harder to convict anyone. The remaining prisoners were slowly released over the next few months. The Salem witch hunt was over. In the years that followed, the community began to feel deep regret. Jurors and accusers, including Ann Putnam Jr., issued public apologies for their roles in the tragedy. The government of Massachusetts officially apologized and offered financial compensation to the victims' families. The Salem Witch Trials serve as a powerful lesson in history. They teach us about the dangers of hysteria, extremism, and the failure of justice. The events show how fear and a rush to judgment can lead a community to abandon reason and turn on its own members. Remembering Salem is important because it reminds us to protect the rights of the accused, to question authority, and to stand up against intolerance and false accusations. The story is a warning that the fight for justice and truth requires constant vigilance, courage, and a commitment to fairness for everyone, no matter how different they may seem.